We're going to do a little hand clapping, foot stomping, so if you want to join in, please feel free to do that. Come on, let's put them up in the air. Let's go. All right, give me that bass line, sir. There ain't no man can't save me. There ain't no man can enslave me. There ain't no man that can change the state my soul is in. There ain't nobody here who can cause me care or raise my fear, 'cause I've got only love to share. If you're looking for the truth, I'll prove you'll find it there. Come on. You got to search something, ain't that right? I know it gets dark, but there's always a light. You don't have to buy in to get into the club. Trade your worries. You gotta show up if you wanna be seen. If it matters to you, Mom, matters to me. I'm gonna fall hard, yeah, I know I am. When the crowds crack up, I laugh at them. There ain't no man can save me. There ain't no man can explain me. There ain't no man that can change the state my soul's in. There ain't nobody here who knows me pain or raise my fear, but I got only love to share. If you're looking for the truth, I prove you'll find it there. You say you look funny, I say you're a star. I say you whatever you think you are. Watch the naysayers fall right in line. If they believe it, they'll say she is so pretty. He is so fine. There ain't no man can save me. There ain't no man can enslave me. There ain't no man that can change the state my soul is in. There ain't nobody here who knows me pay or raise my fear, but I got only love to share. If you're looking for the truth, I'll prove you'll find it there. You got to go somewhere, ain't that true? Not a whole lot of time for me or you. Got a whole lot of reasons to be mad. Let's not pick one. I live in a room at the top of the stairs. I got my window wide open and nobody cares. And I got no choice to get around on up when the sun comes through. Come on. There ain't no man can save me. There ain't no man can enslave me. There ain't no man that can change the state my soul is in. There ain't nobody here who knows me pain or raise my fear, 'cause I've got only love to share. If you're looking for the truth, I'll prove you'll find it there. If you're looking for the truth, I'll prove you'll find it there. If you're looking for the truth, I'll prove you'll find it there.
Give me the name of the first person you fell in love with. What was his or her name? Do you remember? I'll never forget my first love. I was 9 years old, Whitehall, Ohio, Agler-Davidson Sports Store. I was standing there in the aisle when we first made eye contact. She was thin and popular. There was a crowd of boys standing around her. I knew that if I could get her, I'd take her home, show her off to all my friends, take her up to my room, sleep with her in my bed every single night for the rest of my life. She was a gorgeous size 28 Louisville Slugger aluminum baseball bat. I wanted this baseball bat. I had to have this baseball bat. Up till this moment, the only baseball bat I had was a wooden bat. If you remember, do you remember, for those of you old enough, remember the transition from wooden bats to aluminum bats? It was a complete paradigm change. And I ran home. I told my mom that I wanted it. She asked me how much it was. I said, it's $23, but I have, and I counted, $3.20 in Coke soda bottles, right? How many of you are, like, let's say 30 and older, and you remember when you could take bottles back, right, and get money for the bottles, right? For those of you who are 30 and younger, just let it go over your head, right? I told her, I said, I've got $3.20 in soda bottles, and all you have to do is give me $20, and I can go get it before the store closes, before someone else grabs this bat. What do you think? I need $20. And she said, well, I need $20. I'm not giving you $20. If you want $20, you need to go earn $20. And that's not at all what I wanted to hear. So I put the $3.20 of soda bottles in my large red radio flyer wagon, took them back to the store, and that meant I needed to get $19.80 to get my bat. So I got this brilliant idea. I'm going to collect aluminum cans, and then I'm going to go and take them back, right, to the junkyard, and I'm going to get money for aluminum cans. You remember those days? And so I got my friend Chris Pritchard to go in with me. I said, we'll split it 50-50. And so I spent an entire week dumpster diving behind old bars and grocery stores and everywhere, and my parents would bring home them soda. I just started collecting massive amounts of cans. By the end of the week, we had collected 16 trash bags full of aluminum cans, and I thought, hundreds of dollars. We're rich, right? So we crammed all of these trash bags into my mom's 1968 Pontiac Bonneville car, shoved them in the back seat, the trunk, out the windows. It was pretty bad looking. And so we went to the junkyard. We went up to the door, and we said we would like to exchange all of these and get money back. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't take the cans unless they're flat. And he handed us these two steel bricks. And we sat there one by one until finally, after hours of this, my mom was like, line them up. I'm going to run them over and back, right? And so we flattened all of these things. He put them into this huge barrel, weighed them all, and it came back. And how much money do you think it was? $9.37. So Chris and I looked at each other and said, let's go to Friendly's Ice Cream and get some ice cream. And so that's what we did. I remember sitting there, and we had dinner and ice cream, and I remember hearing my mom say how proud she was of all of the hard work that we put in this week. And then the wheels started spinning in the back of my mind as she was saying how proud she was of us, because Friendly's Ice Cream sat right next to Agler Davidson Sports Store, and I was quite convinced that this huge, amazing ending to the story would come when we would get into the car, and my mom would go, nah, we're not going home. We're going to pull into Agler Davidson. And we did. We drove right by Agler Davidson as she went right to our house. And she inadvertently, without knowing, taught me one of the most important lessons I've ever learned about parenting, and that is one of the things we're going to look at today. She didn't buy me that baseball bat. It took me another 2 months to save up the money, and the lesson was more important than if she had just driven over and gotten me the bat. We're finishing up this series called The Parent Trap. And while I was on vacation, Matt Silver did a fantastic job, and so did Adam Flora. And I just want to say, we're talking about parenting. We're finishing it today. I've always believed that you should never listen to parenting advice to anyone that is younger than 55 years of age. And that's because it's not until you're 55 that you actually have kids that are raising kids. And so what I want you to do is, next to my sermon, when you think of it, I want you to put a little asterisk next to it, a little asterisk next to Matt's sermons, a little asterisk next to Adam's sermon, because you don't want to be listening to my advice about parenting, because the story is still being written. You want great parent advice, you find someone in their 60s, and you will find that someone in their 60s will give you very little parenting advice. It'll be very, very guarded. But nevertheless, we do want to talk about what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to be looking at what the Bible teaches on this topic. And so what I want you to do is I want you to grab a pen and a piece of paper with your notes. I want you to write down 10 words, okay? This sermon is all about 10 words, okay? And here's what I want you to write down. Parents must make children take responsibility for their own lives. That's all we're going to talk about today. So let's vote. Do you want me to keep going, or I can just pray and we can head home? Parents must make children take responsibility for their own lives. My mom could have bought that for me. They had plenty of money, But what my mom taught me was more important, that I need to take responsibility for my own life and earn my own way and learn a lesson from that. Now, we get this from 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10. And in that, the Apostle Paul says this, "For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. Anyone who is unwilling to work shall not eat." Now, that seems pretty harsh. In our culture, we like to give out food to people who are unwilling to work. But the Apostle Paul was countercultural. He knew that if you don't ask people who are, if they're unwilling, meaning they're willing, they're able to work. We're not talking about people who are unwilling because they're not able to work. People who are able to work and who are unwilling, you're actually doing them a disservice by giving them handouts. So Paul had started this church in Greece, and he knew exactly what was going on. This was in the early 1st century. This was about 50-51. In this Greek town called today it's Thessaloniki. It was Thessalonica back then. It was the capital city of the northern Grecian Empire. And in that city, basically the Christians were like, well, Jesus is coming back. Why do I need to go into work, right? If you always wanted to tell your boss off, what better excuse do you have than Jesus is coming back next week, right? And so that's exactly what they did. And so they sort of huddled around and had church. Well, he didn't come back. And what happened is that people started bumming like, hey, man, can you give me like a bologna sandwich and a Mountain Dew? I'm sort of, Jesus hadn't come back yet. I'm getting hungry. And the Apostle Paul caught wind of this. He was like, let them starve. Don't let them go using Jesus as some spiritual excuse for not going to work. Get to work. If you're not willing to work, you're not going to eat, period. Now, this idea gets across two important truths for those of us who are Christians in the room. Probably 80% of the people in the room here would claim to have some spiritual relationship with God. The other 20% of you, we're glad you're here, and hopefully you're checking it out. But the first is this: God expects each person to take responsibility for their own life. Like on Judgment Day, you do understand we are going to stand before God and we are going to give account for our life. And no one's going to be behind us. And no one is going to be saying, okay, now I got this one. Now I did this. And no, it's you and you alone. Responsibility comes from the Latin word responsum, to answer, to give account. And each human being is going to have to do that. The second thing is, if you assume responsibility for someone else's life, regardless of the age, you're hurting them and not helping them. Paul's like, the most loving thing you can do is to not give that person food. Now, here's what I want you to understand about Paul's reasoning. Paul believed, at least as human beings, that parenting is nothing more than an 18-year transfer of responsibility. From the moment they're born until the moment they leave, you have 18 years to get them ready for that. I remember when we brought our firstborn home, I had two immediate thoughts. Number one, I had never seen so much poop in my entire life. And the second is, this baby is totally helpless. And then it dawned on me, as we all are aware of, my job is to get that kid out of the house. And I only have 18 years to get that done. And so what often happens is that we parents drop the ball in one of two ways when it comes to that area. And we all do it. We all drop the ball. We're all imperfect. We're all struggling. We can all look back on many, many mistakes that we've made. But here are two of the most common ones. When we fail to help our children assume responsibility, we usually do one of two things. Number one, we shower them with bling. When we give our kids too much money, it keeps them from assuming responsibility for doing that. Years ago, there was a popular TV show on MTV called My Super Sweet 16. Have you seen this show? Did your kids ever watch this show? I don't know what particular manifestation of the devil infested a producer studio came up with this show, but it was pretty bad. My Super Sweet 16 was basically a documentary that went around and showed 16-year-olds and their wealthy parents who tried to outdo each other as they threw one outlandish Sweet 16 birthday party after another. Crazy stuff. Parents showing up, buying Mercedes, hiring famous singers to show up at their 16-year-old parties. Now, on the website at the time, the producers who were trying to encourage kids to get their parents to have outlandish 16-year-old birthday parties gave kids some tips on how they can get their parents to throw a My Super Sweet 16 party. The website said, quote, if you want 4 designer dresses, a pony celebrity performer, and a $100,000 at a venue, and a full fireworks display, don't sell yourself short. After all, you're worth it. Just stay firm, stick to your guns, and shoot your parents out of control death glares whenever they dare question your impeccable judgment. I walked by this TV show for the first time and I said, turn that crap off. We're not watching this. Right? We're like, thank God we're not like those materialistic jerks that do that for their kids. A few years ago, I took our family to Honduras on a mission trip. This was our very first venture into working with Lifeline Christian Mission. And so I was going down. I paid for my family to come with me so we could explore a partnership. We're involved in Haiti. We're involved in a lot of different places. As a result of that partnership that we created, we went down to Honduras, to a town called Amoa on the coast of Honduras, to visit a girls' home, 21 kids, and one amazing couple, Carlos and Patty Rodriguez. I tell people all of the time, God's greatest servants have never written a book, they've never preached a sermon, they've never done anything. And that's definitely Carlos and Patty. We showed up at this compound, this home with walls, and we stayed next at a little rat trap motel. I woke up in the morning and I was covered with ants. I was like, what is going on? We showed up and we spent some time with them getting to know Carlos and Patty and their sweet girls. The girls took us all through the city, and we made T-shirts with them, and I bought them soccer balls, and we were trying to discern how we could best help them, and we had a little lesson, and I asked Carlos, I was like, hey, we were hoping, we have some free time before we have to leave. Can we take the kids out to eat? And they said, oh, yeah. I said, well, where would they like to go? And down, it was about 40 minutes away, over in Santa Tecla, there was a Pizza Hut. I said, well, can you tell the kids in Spanish that we're going to take them to Pizza Hut? So we gathered the kids together, and they told them we were going to take them to Pizza Hut, and they flipped out. I'm talking cheering, jumping up and down, hugging, freaking out. They ran immediately to the vans. They got ready. We went all the way over to Santa Tecla, went into the Pizza Hut, and I ordered a gazillion pizzas, and they ate them all, and it was a ton of fun. And I leaned over to Carlos, and I said, how often do the kids, forget Pizza Hut, but how often do the kids get to eat out? And they said, usually maybe 1 to 2, no more than 3 times a year. When was the last time you ate out with your kids? How often do you get to eat out and spend more than $3 a kid for food? Hebrews 13:5 says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. That's a hard job as an adult. That's a very, very hard job in this culture as a kid. I was talking with our student ministry folks recently. I asked them, I said, what's the toughest challenge you face trying to get your students to live as fully devoted followers of Jesus? Without hesitation, an entitlement mentality. You don't believe me? Just come over here during our HSM when they meet on Sunday night and look at the cars in the parking lot for high schoolers. High schoolers. First car that I bought was a $200 Datsun B210. It had a rusted out floorboard, and literally if I killed an animal while driving, I could back up and say, oh, it was a raccoon, all right, and keep going. Our family sponsors 2 children. One is a little girl named Virginia who has AIDS. Another girl is a little boy named Brian that on a recent trip to Africa, he followed me and my wife around, begging us to sponsor him. One of the highlights of our family is getting letters and opening them up from those two and watching them grow and then going back to visit. That's why today in our foyer, we have an opportunity that we're going to give you to partner with some amazing kids and change their lives. $35, $38 a month. And for the very first time, we're opening up child sponsorships to a group of girls who have been rescued from sex trafficking in Cambodia. And you have an opportunity where you as a family can sponsor one of these girls and change their lives. And so whether you're going to sponsor a kid in Haiti, whether you're sponsoring a kid in Africa, or whether you're going to sponsor a kid in Cambodia, something has to counteract the materialism. And it's something we all struggle with. And this is just, if the whole culture is going this direction, this is just one tiny little thing that's going in the opposite direction. So one of the ways we drop the ball is we shower them with bling. The other thing that we do is we do things for them that they should do for themselves. I remember the day Lisa read that Kelly Ripa's 7-year-old daughter does her own laundry. That next day, I believe you either went to Target or Walmart, and remember you bought different colored hampers for each of the girls. You showed them how to do laundry, and then you said, "You're on your own." Your kids are going to hate this sermon, I'm just telling you, by the time we're done with this, right? You're on your own. You're either going to do your own laundry or you're going to wear smelly clothes, but I'm done. You're able to do your own laundry for yourself. So here's what I've done. I created a list of possible things that our kids could do. Okay, now I just want you, a lot of you are thinking that I'm thinking about 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds. And some of you have 25 and 30-year-olds that need that list, okay? All right? So I'm going to show you a list. What you're going to do is you're going to get in a little group next to 1 or 2 people. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Quickly, you got to go through this. I'm going to show you different tasks that could possibly be done by a child. And then you're going to answer yes or no, whether you think a child should do that. And then you're going to answer what age. So go ahead and show me the list up here. All right, so the first one is cleaning up after themselves. Should they do that? Yes. At what age should children start cleaning up after themselves? I'm going to give you 30 seconds. On your mark, get set, go. Second one, household chores. Should they do household chores? At what age? How about, can they start doing them at 3? Okay, all right. Are they getting paid for them? No. Wow, you're harsh. Don't you dare go home and blame all of this on me, all right? Entertainment expenses. Should they pay for their own entertainment expenses? Yes. At what age? Whenever they start wanting to be entertained, right? When we were kids, the only entertainment was get out of the house, right? That's right. Conflict resolution with siblings. Yeah, absolutely. At a young age? Yeah, very young age, right? How about extracurricular expenses like sports, clothes, and electronic equipment? They're expensive. They should pay part of it at least. At what age? All right. And how about managing money with tithing and saving and that sort of thing? Right? We can absolutely. Now, why don't we do this? We don't do this because we don't want to be the bad guys, right? We don't want to be the heavies, the mean people. We're tired, we're stressed, we have too much going on. It's just easier to do it ourselves, keep them happy, keep them quiet, and that sort of thing. But the bigger question is, what happens when we don't force our children to assume responsibility for their own lives? We rob them of the opportunity to develop creativity and initiative. I remember when my oldest came to me, I don't know, maybe I think she was like 6. And she wanted to get something, and we said, no, we're not going to do that. You got to go earn some money. About 7 hours later, near the end of the day before dinner time, she walks back into the house with this big green wicker basket she had gotten from the basement with toys, many of my tools, books. I'm like, what were you doing? And she said, nothing. I said, well, no, seriously, what were you doing? She said, I was selling stuff. I'm like, what do you mean you were selling stuff? She said, I went door to door. I said, what? Hold on, so wait, what? She said, no, I went door to door and I had the basket and I just knocked on the door and I said, do you want to buy something? I said, wait a minute, you've been going around our neighborhood selling my tools and books and toys and stuff like that. I said, how much did you make? She said, $40. I said, all right, not bad, right? It ought to be music to our ears when our kids say, I don't have any money, I need to work. It ought not be music to our ears when I need money, I need you to give me some money, right? And so as Alan Lloyd Guinness said in his book, The Power of Optimism, if your kid is going in any direction you want them to go, you need to jump on that train. And so this is what the Apostle Paul's talking about in 2 Thessalonians 3:10. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. Anyone who is unwilling to work shall not eat. Doing without is a powerful motivation, whether they're 3, 13, or 23. That's why I love what Steve Wozniak, the person who co-founded Apple with Steve Jobs, he said this. He said, all the best things I did at Apple came from A, not having money, and B, not having done it before. That's why if you're asking me, the most loving thing our leaders in government could do would be a work for food program. Here is the place where you show up to work. After you get done working, you will get paid. This is how you get your card or your food stamps to go get food. But until you work, you don't get food, period, unless you are unable. We all want to be a part of a society where someone is mentally, physically unable. We want to take care of those people. That's just the kind of society we want to be a part of. We're all one big group together. But people who are able to work but are unwilling to work, that is a fundamentally different story. I don't have any food. Too bad. There's the place where you show up to work. You don't want to work. It's amazing what happens after 3 days of not having any food and no one showing up with some bleeding heart wanting to give out handouts. It develops creativity and initiative and persistence and discipline. That's what's missing for many people. And so let me just summarize. The whole goal of parenting is that parents must make children take responsibility for their own lives, whether they're 2. When they're 2, they can begin doing things for themselves. When they're 4, they can begin to clean up, put toys away, learn to resolve conflict. When they're 7, 8, or 9, they can have basic household chores. By the time they're 10, they're early teens, they can earn money to buy their own stuff. They need to start saving, and they need to start tithing as a kid when they make their first dollar. And that's our job as parents. So by the time they turn 18 years of age, they've gone from having no responsibility to fully taking care of every aspect of their lives. Think of this. Think of the average kid today going off to college versus our great-great-grandparents, who when they were 16, 17, and 18 fought a world war and saved the world from the brink of extermination. And what now you have to do for a 17, 18, or 19-year-old. Think about it. Think about the responsibility that was placed on them and how they performed when they did that. So what I want to do is I want to end by sharing just one practical insight from a Christian psychologist named Dr. Kevin Lehman. Whenever he's asked the question, how do you teach kids responsibility, he always shares this little formula, and I want you guys to write this down, okay? Do not tell your kids that I told you this, but this is Dr. Kevin Lehman. It's this. B does not happen until A is completed. All right? B does not happen until A is completed. We train children to take responsibility by not allowing them to go on to the next activity until the first activity is done. Let me give you an example. You have a 4-year-old that makes a mess in the family room. They want to go on and they want to watch TV. And what do you say? No TV until you pick up your mess. B does not happen until A is completed. And then what do? They cry, they beg, they plead, they scream. And what do you say? What are we're all going to say this together. Cry me a river. Ready? We're all going to say it together. 1, 2, 3. Cry me a river, right? We're going to practice this. The 4-year-old does that, and this is how we're going to respond. Let me give you another completely different example. You have a 16-year-old that makes a mess in the family room and that wants to go on and watch TV. You say no TV until the room is clean. What are they going to do? You know they're going to cry. They're going to beg, they're going to plead, and then what we're going to say, 1, 2, 3, cry me a river, no TV until the room is clean. Let me give you a completely random different scenario. You have a 26-year-old that makes a mess in the... You get the point. As Dr. Kevin Lehman would say, B does not happen until A is completed. Now here's the thing. There's not a parent in this room that can't look back on multiple scenarios where we realize we made mistakes. That's just reality. That's just the fact of life. That's why you don't want to judge yourself too harshly until you're in your 50s and 60s, and then you can evens out after a while. Then you realize, you know what, they turned out all right, didn't they? They turned all right for themselves. But right now, we need to remind ourselves, whether they're 2, whether they're 22 or 32. You want to eat? Fine, you're going to have to work. You want to watch TV? You want to do that until you clean up. Because if I didn't get my baseball bat, right, you're certainly not going to. Parents must make their children do what? Take responsibility for their own lives. That's what Paul's saying. Let's pray. We're very, very thankful, God, that this is a community of grace. This is a community of acceptance and forgiveness. We understand in very vivid detail our weaknesses as parents. That's why we're so thankful that you are there along the way, supporting not just us, but them. From the time our children are born, we hold our hearts in our throats. The pains are amplified, the risks even more so. And that's why just knowing that you're there with us, supporting us, not judging us, but helping us and encouraging us makes all the difference in the world. And so I just pray that for our community here. I pray that you would give us strength and resolve as we are blessed with children and have the responsibility to train them in your ways. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.